Hey everyone, welcome to the Revenue Growth Architects podcast. It's Chrissy with Charlie and Xander, and today we're going to be talking about lead scoring and the 3 mistakes to avoid with lead scoring. I think it's interesting to talk about lead scoring because, we've been doing it for ages, and recently it's been getting some mixed reviews. It's kind of like, everyone wants to say the MQL is dead, lead scoring is dead. But I do think that at the crux of it, lead scoring is prioritization. And we feel like there's still a need for prioritization for leads and how you send those over as sales ready. So if you're going to be doing lead scoring, do it the right way though. And so here are 3 things to avoid. I know the first one, Xander, you can kick it off with the first important thing to avoid with lead scoring.
Yeah. And you almost kind of alluded to it. So oftentimes I will talk with stakeholders and they'll say, we don't have a lot of volume of inbound. I have enough SDRs to handle my inbound. So I don't really need lead scoring. Let's just send everything off to the sales team. It's an interesting data point, right? Like if your volume's good and your SDR team can handle it, great. However, the purpose of lead scoring is not just to tell you who's actively doing what within the organization. It's also trying to tell you who's the right person to be reaching out to. So I've been working with clients who are doing like account-based selling motions, and they're saying, okay, this account is now a MQA. Great. Who within the account should I be talking to? Well, if you don't have a scoring model in place, it's really difficult to figure out who's engaging with what and who's doing what. So I think that having a scoring model is really important, even if you choose not to utilize it for a sales ready handoff. But you can go in, you can get demographic scoring, you can get behavior scoring, and you can start to tell a more thorough story to the team on who to work based upon that criteria.
Totally. I think also sometimes people forget, like, not only is it like a prioritization tool, but it's like an identification tool of like who a good target is. Like in past roles, we've even just took the firmographic score and been able to say like, okay, were these people at target or not if they met a certain threshold? And that was really useful as the team was starting to work on the inbound motion or drumming up more demand, because they can actually see like, are they bringing in the right people really quickly? Instead of just looking, they can actually report on it and say, okay, this is how many targets this campaign brought through. This is how many they didn't. And so when you have like that little volume, just even seeing out the little volume really quickly, like who was a target and who wasn't, can be super valuable.
One other thought is the SDR team typically are people that are newer into the organization or into the industry. So they may not even know the personas yet. So it's a lot easier to be able to train on, go reach out to all of your A's and B's versus here's all of your key personas that you have to understand. Like they're going to learn that over time, hopefully. But to just get somebody to hit the ground running, you're equipping them with a tool that's much easier to scale.
Totally. So the second thing to avoid with lead scoring is not having the proper data. And also, I think maybe I'll cover this as far as like not having like the right model in place and the data to support that. So I think when we think about scoring, there's 2 aspects to it. There's, are they a fit? And then how much intent are they showing? And this is also a mistake to avoid. Don't try and blend those things together. That's more of a how-to, but don't try and put that all into one score. That doesn't work. I think you want a matrix, and that's a bonus mistake to avoid. But when we think about, though, those 2 things, there's a data structure around that. And if you don't have the proper data or even know what to, score off properly, it's not going to be very useful. So when we think about the firmographics, it's the fit of the actual company and also the fit of the person. You need to actually know, what is that? So having a clear idea of your ICP, well-defined, or other key factors that have a stronger propensity to close. That's why going back to like close won deals or opportunities, especially if you haven't changed anything from a go-to-market strategy recently, can be really useful, especially if you have volume as well. And then figuring out, okay, if we are going to score on those things, do we actually have the data? We've worked with so many companies who come in and they're like, oh, we want to score on industry. And then no one has industry. We want to score on persona, barely any titles. So you need to actually trace yourself back and really think about, okay, do we actually even have the data to support this model, or do we need to go out and acquire that? And then on intent, you also want to be really sure that you're being able to track those intent signals. So more than just like, hey, you've had a response, but really like, are you tracking your campaigns down to what type of response? Was it like a hand raiser event? What did they actually attend an in-person event versus registering for like a webinar? These are all things that are probably going to be weighted a bit differently. So being able to actually decipher between those different activities, whether that's separate workflows in HubSpot or different statuses or program statuses, Marketo, whatever you might be doing, you need to ensure that you have that. And so that's a big mistake. People just go in, start creating this, and then they run into those roadblocks and they're like, oh, we don't have the data, or oh, we don't have actually the structure in place to do that. And so data, like everything, data rules everything around us as operators and architects, but really for this, it truly does. So yeah. Charlie, I want to kick it over to you for the third one. I guess like I gave us a bonus one, but definitely the big third one.
Yeah, you did 2 and 2.5, and this is still 3. Or is this 4? Either way, I think it's fine. We can have as many as we want. So the last one is just not improving. A lot of people, I think, maybe intuitively know this, but then still don't do it, where they set up lead scoring and they know, oh, we'll come back to it, improve it over time. But then they don't, and they get carried away with other stuff. Or potentially even they just don't even know that that's the right thing to do. Our perspective is that it is a part of your revenue growth architecture that needs continuous improvement and analysis and reviewing and updates. There's so many things that can change over time. Like you might change your ICP, you might introduce a new channel, you might have a new persona. All of these things kind of triggers that would require you to update your lead scoring. And if you're not thinking about lead scoring as you start developing the business and the business matures and changes, then your lead scoring is going to start, there's going to be this drift, right? Where it's going to be scoring things, but the higher the score doesn't actually mean the higher propensity to buy, or it's going to not align with your current business. The other side of it is, even if your business is relatively staying the same, like you've got the same ICP, you've got the same channels, maybe you're a bit of a more mature organization and you're testing different aspects, you still need to go back and then review what you've set up and review if the scoring is actually working for you or not. You can do this either through a feedback loop with SDRs, where you either ask them, what do you think are some of the issues that you're seeing with what is being sent to you? You can look at their recycled reasons or the disqualified reasons to see what are some of the reasons why they kicked them back or they disqualified. Should we bake that into our scoring? Or you can just do your own analysis to see what is working and what's not working. So it could be in the category of we're scoring XYZ too high. It could be in the category of what Chrissy, you were just talking about, where, oh, actually, we thought we were going to have this data point for industry, but we got rid of our enrichment vendor or something, and now we don't.
Mhm.
So we needed XYZ demographic score to be this high to be able to push over to sales. But actually something's changed. There's an issue with enrichment, which is meaning we're not getting that. So it is something to be tinkered with over time. I would say though, when you think about the cadence of adjustments, you don't want to update it every day. I mean, if you're fixing things, yes. But if you're doing regular reviews, it could be monthly or quarterly, try and wait for enough data to accumulate to be able to then have a statistically significant reason to change something. I often see some companies maybe moving too fast to change things too. So at least give it a month or a quarter to see what are the recycled reasons, do the analysis of what you're seeing, and then make a change. But in general, you're really thinking about this as a long-term continuous improvement project. This is going to only get better with time.
So when it comes to lead scoring, and I know some people hate on lead scoring these days on LinkedIn, what's kind of a good reminder to folks of maybe why they should still like implement? I know we talked about things to avoid, but if you had to sum it up between the both of you, like what's one of the value or impacts that it can have that you feel like outweighs some of the negativity?
What's the negativity? I know I see it too, but maybe what are the things that you both are seeing reasons not to do it?
I think people think it's arbitrary. Like they think that like marketing is just selecting what they think is useful and valuable and from intent and then just using that to send it over, which honestly I'm like, well, isn't that still valuable though? It's just maybe their model's wrong to me and if they think that it's not valuable, but that's why I still think that some of the arguments for it are kind of my arguments to do it. I don't know.
I mean, it comes back to everything's wrong, but it's still useful, right? You're not
Yeah.
saying this lead scoring model is infallible, like it's just going to be 100% right every time. You're just trying to separate the good from the bad and be mostly right most of the time to drive efficiencies.
I do think that it starts with what the marketing goals are, because if the marketing
Yeah.
goals are still stuck on MQLs, scoring is usually problematic.
Oh,
But if you
yeah.
get beyond
Mhm.
that and you start
point.
to have marketing trying to drive opportunities, your MQLs need to convert into opportunities. And that is just so that everybody knows that's listening. That's just an inherent belief that we have, which is the reason why this conversation leaned the way that it did. But yeah, if you've got somebody that's coming in and saying, okay, give this person 100 points because we're down on our MQL goal by 80, then yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
problematic.
That's a good
Don't
point.
throw scoring in with all the issues that you have with MQLs. Like scoring by itself, kind of seen by itself, doesn't have to be mixed up with all the drama that all the MQL crap that we've talked about lots of times on the podcast.
Yeah, I think all the mistakes with it are kind of like just people have had bad deployments of it. Like, oh, we have lead scoring, but like if they sniff something, then they can become sales ready. Or, oh, we have lead scoring, but they are mixing both the intent and the fit together. So if someone's a good fit, if they just come through content syndication or something, they're going to MQ out. You know what I mean? So I think it has to do with just poor deployment. So really think about it as a prioritization and filtering through like what actually should be sales ready. That's like, key. Well, I think it's still useful, especially when done the right way. And I think we all do. We see it can be valuable to the customer journey just because you're actually following up when it's ready. And then also efficiency because you're not sending over a ton of shit to SDRs to not have to go through. So those are two big ones there. So that's the final piece. But yeah, if you're doing a scoring project or you know someone who is, feel free to share this so they can learn from the mistakes. And we'll see you next time on the Revenue Growth Architects podcast. Have a good one, everyone.